Good afternoon, everyone. Joined by Sanitation Commissioner Catherine Garcia, First Deputy Commissioner, Department of Transportation Lori Ardito, our OEM Commissioner Joe Esposito, our Schools Chancellor Carmen Farina, Chief of Department NYPD Jimmy O'Neill, our Fire Commissioner Dan Nigro, and of course our First Deputy Mayor Tony Shoras. Everyone knows that we are once again facing tough winter weather. We want to get all New Yorkers updated and prepared. We will be under a winter storm watch starting at 7 p.m. this evening. So just around the time the Super Bowl is starting, we will be under a winter storm watch. That will go on until 6 p.m. tomorrow, Monday. So almost 24 hours under the storm watch. We're expecting snow, sleet, and freezing rain. Now, we have the latest forecast from the National Weather Service from a couple hours ago, but I will say at the outset, we all know that weather forecasting is imperfect. We're not going to have a full and complete update until the very early morning hours. So this situation could change a lot between now and when we wake up tomorrow morning. Could change for the better, could change for the worse. We have to be ready for any eventuality. But the latest that we've gotten from the Weather Service, and trying to adjust a little bit for some of what we've seen lately where the numbers come in a little higher than expected, we're hearing most likely a range of 2 to 5 inches of snow. It would not be surprising if that turned into 4 to 7 inches. Based on what we're seeing so far. But again, a lot can change between now and the early morning hours. From what we know now, if it is most likely in the 2 to 5 range, possibly the 4 to 7 range, that's the kind of snowstorm we can accommodate fairly well. The biggest threat in this case would be ice. We would expect a lot of icing on our roads and sidewalks, up to a 1/4 inch of ice in some places. And a lot of that would happen in the early morning hours. So we want people to be very, very cautious tomorrow as you're getting around, looking out for the potential danger of ice. There will be wind, gusts of up to 35 miles an hour, so it's not particularly extreme, but it will be a noticeable amount of wind. Now, the snow, again, the winter storm watch begins at 7 p.m. tonight. We think you probably won't see actual snow accumulating much at all before the end of the Super Bowl, so 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the evening. But for anyone leaving Super Bowl parties, you're going to have to be ready to be careful at that point. You could have some beginning of accumulation of snow. You could have slippery driving conditions. Want to urge people to think ahead. Have a designated driver. Obviously, don't drink and drive under any circumstance, but particularly not on a night where it could be snowy and icy. So I want people to be very, very careful after the Super Bowl tonight. Again, the real snow will happen in earnest overnight, and particularly the early hours of the morning. You know, talking about 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock a.m. is when we think it'll hit stronger based on the information we have now. The snow will continue into the morning rush hour. At some point in the morning, we expect it to convert to freezing rain and then regular rain. So we're going to see a progression here as things warm up going through the morning. At the end of the storm, we expect to be hit by very cold temperatures. So right now the projection is for, with wind chill, temperatures of 10 below to 20 below on Monday evening. Tomorrow night, Monday night, 10 below to 20 below. Again, very dangerous conditions Monday night in New York City in terms of just exposure. We want people to really keep their time outside limited tomorrow night. Don't go outside if you don't need to. If you know of anyone who may be vulnerable, it's very important to help them out or to call it in, because those will be extremely cold temperatures. As you know, we are prepared for snowstorms. We have a huge task ahead in this next 24 hours covering our 6,000 miles of roadways. I never tire of reminding you that's like going from here to Los Angeles and back, but that's what sanitation and DOT deal with every single day, and they are more than up to the task. So I want to thank everyone at DOT, everyone at OEM. Particular thank you to the men and women of the Sanitation Department who are already in action getting ready for this. They've been at sanitation continuing those 12-hour shifts. Still coming off the last storm, now getting ready for the new one. Here's what we have in action preparing for this storm, 2,400 sanitation workers per shift, 500 salt spreaders ready, 1,600 snow plows. FDNY will also be adding personnel, additional 25 ambulances and 10 support units to handle any emergencies. And we have the ability to add personnel as the weather report clarifies. So they are put initial extra personnel in place. We may add to that depending on what we see with the next report, which will come in starting after 1 a.m. this morning, this coming morning, I should say. We know that our workforce has seen it all, and they can handle even the toughest situations. And we know they are doing everything to get us ready for the tough weather ahead. What we have to do as New Yorkers is do the right thing, do the smart thing, and prepare. So even tonight after the Super Bowl, driving could start to be a little slower. Take some precautions. Take your time tomorrow morning. Expect your commute to take more time. Drive slower. Be careful. If you don't need to be out on the roads tomorrow morning, don't go out on the roads. If you don't need to walk around, don't walk around. Just exercise some caution because, again, we think the worst of this will be over by late morning tomorrow. Again, you have to get around. You have the option of mass transit. Mass transit is by far the best option in this situation. We're going to ask people to avoid city parks when we get this snow going in earnest overnight. So going into the morning hours, we'd like people to stay out of city parks tomorrow morning because we're worried, again, about accumulation on the trees and any danger of falling limbs. We'll have more to say. We'll obviously have updates throughout the day tomorrow, but we want to start with the assumption that city parks are not a great place to be in the morning. As I always emphasize, if anyone's having a problem with heat and hot water, we particularly like to make sure those issues are addressed when there's bad weather. Call 311 if you're having a problem with heat or hot water so we can act on it right away. Always do something basic but very important. Check on your neighbors, particularly check on your neighbors who are seniors, who happen to be disabled, or if you know they have particular medical needs. It's a great time to check in on them this afternoon, see if they have everything they need, check in on them again tomorrow. It helps a lot. In terms of other announcements, we're announcing that alternate side parking is canceled tomorrow. Alternate side canceled tomorrow. Garbage and recycling pickups canceled tomorrow. We'll have an update, obviously, tomorrow on whether we will continue that into Tuesday, but we know for sure no alternate side tomorrow. As for school, at this moment, we expect school to be open. This will be a final decision. Will be a game time decision as we get the National Weather Service report in the early morning hours tonight. But based on what we know now, we expect school to be open. Parents should check first thing in the morning to confirm that, but plan on school being open. Again, if people need information, 311. If they see an emergency, they see a life-threatening situation, 911. Quickly in Spanish before I bring up a few of my colleagues. Nos estamos preparando para enfrentar una tormenta de nieve y de hielo. Se espera que la nieve comience a caer hoy y continúe hasta mañana en la tarde. Mientras trabajamos para garantizar la seguridad de todos. Les pedimos que por su seguridad, por favor, eviten estar en la calle tanto como sea posible. With that, I'd like to bring up our Sanitation Commissioner. She has gone through her first big storm with flying colors, as she will the next one. Commissioner Catherine Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the mayor said, we do have 2,400 employees on each of our shifts. They have been on 12-hour shifts for over a week now. They will continue to be as we attack this storm as we have attacked the other storms. We have been pre-positioning our equipment this afternoon, and we've been doing a lot of planning in the last 18 hours, getting plowed and chained and ready to go. This will be a difficult storm in terms of the fact that the timing has been a little bit unknown and there will be ice accumulation, so I do ask folks, if they are driving, to make sure that they are taking it slow. Thank you.
Thank you very much. DOT has been doing a great job trying to fill potholes at every opportunity to make this work go better, and great coordination with sanitation. I'd like to welcome our DOT First Deputy Commissioner, Lori Ardito. Whoops, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor, and good afternoon. And as the Mayor said, we are hard at work and we're ready for the storm. We're going to have over 600 personnel over the next 2 days to address the storm, assisting sanitation. We also have our bridge unit that takes care of the 4 East River bridges. We will be this evening pre-treating them, both the walkway and the roadway. But as everyone has mentioned, it is going to be icy out there first thing in the morning, and we just need to be careful while we're driving and walking. We also want to make sure that everyone knows that the Staten Island Ferry will be on a normal schedule, and obviously, based on the storm, if anything changes, we will send out notifications, but we want everybody to give themselves enough time in the morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Finally, our OEM commissioner has been doing a great job getting all the agencies to work in coordination, obviously also with our state and federal partners. Our OEM commissioner, Joe Esposito.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've been in constant contact with National Weather Service. We'll continue to do that right through the whole storm to see if the conditions do change. Numerous calls and meetings with our agency partners, making sure that the plans are coordinated and put into place. Our command center, our emergency operations center, will be open as of 9 o'clock tonight. Again, we have representatives from other agencies there with us, and they'll stay open and in touch with each other until the storm is passed. Our tow truck task force will be activated sometime around 9 o'clock tonight, maybe a little later, depending on the latest indication by our National Weather Service. Hazardous travel advisory has been issued. We're sending out messaging through social media to private sector, everyone about the current conditions and what to do and what not to do. And also the homebound, we've ensured that extra meals have been delivered. So they'll have meals for tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joe. And Joe, how many tow trucks do you have available to you, roughly? Over 100. Over 100. Good. So we have tow trucks ready in case anything bogs down. With that, we welcome your questions on this topic. Yes.
Mayor, just really quickly, you mentioned that you want people to limit their exposure tomorrow, but what's the rationale for keeping the schools open? Maybe Councilor Freeman.
Well, I'll start, and Chancellor can certainly join in, because I think there's a clear point here. Our job is, of course, to keep things moving in New York City and make sure people can go about their lives, but that also means be careful, be smart about it. If we ever have a situation where we don't think school can be put together properly, we, of course, will call it off. That's what we did last week. But in this case, based on the numbers we have, which it could be in the low single digits in terms of the number of inches of snow, it does not make sense to call off school in that situation. It does make sense to tell people, be careful getting around. If you don't have to, walk outside, don't walk outside. If you can use mass transit, use mass transit. It's about taking smart precautions. But we think, based on what we know at this moment, things could go pretty well tomorrow. We feel good about the ability to have a pretty normal day in New York City. We won't know for sure what the National Weather Service thinks until after their 1 a.m. forecast to us. Then we have to make some additional decisions potentially. And at that point, we may have more information. We also know, as we discovered last week, snow and weather in general is unpredictable. Sometimes you get a lot more than you expect. Sometimes you get a lot less than you expect. So we're making our decisions with the current National Weather Service forecast, adding a few inches in for safety's sake. We still think that we can have a good, safe school day and a pretty normal day, all things considered, in New York City. Chancellor, you want to add? Or? Sure.
Yeah. I think the major thing, particularly for parents, is to make sure your kids are dressed appropriately, layer them, and I think also leaving a little extra time to get to school, whether you're the professional in the building or the parent with children. Yo creo que es muy importante que los padres de Nueva York se den cuenta que mañana que los chiquillos tienen que ir a la escuela bien abrigados y que tienen que a lo mejor salir de la casa un poco más temprano para llegar a la escuela en tiempo y cuando vayan para casa también con mucho cuidado porque las calles van a estar un poco resbalosas.
Mr. Mayor, a week ago you held a similar press conference for the storm that didn't materialize. My question is not in any way meant as a criticism, but did you feel at all maybe a little sheepish or embarrassed coming out a week later and doing the same thing?
Nope. I make decisions for a living. That's what the people sent me here to do. We take the information we have. We make the best decision we can with it. I will always err on the side of safety. And in this case, again, tomorrow, at this moment, thank God, looks like something we can manage well. The forecasts we had in the hours leading up to last storm were so consistent and so overwhelming in terms of the magnitude being suggested. It was obviously the right thing to do to take extra precautions. But no, it's the same criteria, the same approach each time. What we all talk about is the unknown, because even the best forecasting can only get you so close to the truth. So how do you add to the forecast some extra assumptions to be careful? How do you make decisions if you get the information late? That 1 o'clock National Weather Service forecast takes some time for them to then give us the information, the details from. Different agencies have to weigh in. That means we don't get to make a decision until 3 a.m., 4 a.m., practically speaking, if something has to be handled differently. That's why I'm emphasizing to parents, check first thing in the morning. Right now, again, expectation that school will happen, but it's important to check first thing in the morning.
This is a question for Commissioner Contra. Do you have any updates about the causes of the Williamsburg fires last night?
Well, why don't we do this topic first, then we'll do that after, or you can do it separately. Go ahead.
Mayor, have you been in touch with the governor or his staff today? And if so, is that smoother than with the last storm?
In general, it was smooth during the last storm, and it has been in all of these situations. That's why I don't want people to take a whole fact pattern and misrepresent it. We talk generally on the staff level, state and city, all the time about a whole host of things. Coordination is very good. OEM's coordination with the state and the MTA is very good. Once in a while, there'll either be a miscommunication or a difference of opinion, but the vast majority of the times, there's lots of communication and lots of agreement. So yes, that has been continuing in preparation for this storm.
Just to follow up from that, have you ever spoken to the governor about what happened with the subway and perhaps you not being consulted in reasonable time, or at least having your input?
We've made the point clearly to the state that we think we can do a little bit better next time, and we think we have to learn from this situation what different options we may have in that kind of situation. I think it's been a productive conversation.
So alternate side is suspended tomorrow. Any plans on adjusting the other street rules?
When you, like, for example?
For example, you're not supposed to park between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. Some people find confusion whether they can park in those spots.
All right, let's bring DOT up to clarify. We want to get rid of that confusion.
I think maybe you may be referring to the regulation that's in around parking meters prior to the parking meter going into effect. So parking meters are in effect, so that regulation is in effect prior to the parking meters. So the only thing that is canceled is alternate side of street parking rules.
Anyone who hasn't gone yet? Otherwise,
Mr. Mayor, given that much of the storm is going to be happening at night, do you feel that the clock is working in the city's favor this time?
No. I would rather that we had a clearer picture by definition. We obviously understand that a lot of information is going to break late here. But we're ready for that. In other words, once we've been alerted to the fact that the snow will happen, right at the time when folks are getting ready to get going with their day, we're going to do our best with every piece of information we have to make the right adjustments in light of that. I think we all prefer snow to get done, sort of late evening, early morning hours, so we have a lot of open field for sanitation to get out there. By the way, look at what sanitation did with this last storm. Extraordinary job of clearing the way so that when we lifted the travel ban, things were actually quite smooth in most parts of the city. This situation, the snow is going to be hitting later than we would ideally like, based on what we know now. But at 1 a.m., we may find a very different reality, and that's part of what we have to grapple with.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, what is the latest communication you have with the subway MTA about service tomorrow morning?
At this moment, we think MTA will be fully operational.
Mr. Mayor, this is admittedly a tricky forecast, sort of by any standard. And at the moment, as far as I know, it's supposed to snow for a manageable amount, and then ice at the moment the school buses go on the road. So I guess I'm curious, what's the latest you can make the decision? Can you delay school? And, I know you don't get into what ifs, but what happens if you decide not to close schools and then, as predicted right now, becomes a nightmare?
Well, I don't think any scenario, thank God, is a nightmare. I think what we were getting forecasted a week ago was a real nightmare. This is traditionally within the manageable level of snow. I think part of why we are having this press conference is to help people know what's coming. My experience as a driver and as a pedestrian is if you know to take precautions, you act differently. So we're telling all our fellow New Yorkers, take precautions. If you don't have to drive, don't drive in the morning. If you can take mass transit, that's better. If you have to drive, drive slow, leave extra time. If you're getting your kids to school, leave extra time. If you have to go out on the sidewalks, be very cautious about ice. But we have a chance, based on what we find out in the early morning hours, to make a decision up till about 4 a.m. That if we had to get something out new to the world, we could get out by, say, 5 a.m. That is enough time for most people to make changes if they have to or if anything happens with school. Again, we don't predict that based on what we know now. Based on what we know now, school will be open, MTA will be running pretty smoothly, you will experience delays, people should give themselves extra time and should act carefully. And then by the time we get to the end of the morning, things should be clearing up. Last call, going once, going twice. Thank you, everyone.
Anything off topic?
Can we just ask Commissioner Nigro about the fire?
Yeah, sure. I was just asking if you had any updates about the causes of the two fires last night.
No, it's really way too early for that because we can't get into the building. The only thing we've been able to do is talk to 3 employees who were there overnight. So it'll be a while before we have any idea what started that fire.
Is it still smoldering?
It is still doing a little more than smoldering. It'll be smoldering probably all week, and off and on we get pockets of fire, but we have the building surrounded, and we'll maintain a presence there as long as we need to.
Commissioner, from an inspection standpoint, you've got a warehouse piled floor to ceiling with paper. Is it up to code? Were there inspections at this facility as far as you know?
It's inspected regularly, and we won't know really what started it. It's a building full of fuel, a building full of paper, and once it got started, it was difficult to extinguish, especially under the extraordinarily rough conditions for the firefighters with the extreme cold and strong winds.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone.